on chain. Yo, we pity let the city on sports and chains. We pity let the city with regen brains. We pity let the city on sports and chains. No rug pulls, just pure on chain. Chains. She's a Colorado comet in code forged steel, wings snipping latency like scissors through gel. 9 centuries young with a lance that's, if your chain's choking Ethernet whiz. Found her at a bullet hook sucking down APIs, armor clinking with layer 2 lullabies. Scalability scripture, she winks at the moon while Lagrange drools over slow motion doom. Her shield's a disco wall, fracturing legs, grass, shooby-doo-bop crack. That lance a lightning fork, splitting bottlenecks backs. Alliance architect with a bufficorn's grit, teaching stale protocols how to fucking commit. Decentralize this, she smirks mid-flight as her wings tickle nodes into doing things right. Da-da-da-da. Architect with a bufficorn's grit, teaching stale protocols how to fucking commit. Decentralize this, she smirks mid-flight as her wings tickle nodes into doing things right. To do with a do with a do with do with do. You ordered a moonwalk across gas feet graves. My mainnet's smoother than your mom's VPN saves. Daughter of the Rockies, high-speed high priestess, scales of justice ballast on a Memphis Express. Next bottleneck, I see mountain crush it. Click, clack, goes a mace on firewall. I swoop and truce from trash sheets. That's my device. Nullifier sniffing by my clothes too crisp. Mainnet gossips, tastier than breakfast chips. Story, hack, flurry. Mama's making news before the cold reload. Got receipts in my cheeks, encrypted and plumbed. You private DMs, I'm the dumpster dive chump. Eyes everywhere, batch 3 bird phones. Haunteries whisper, king chomp and blockchain bones. Make it down to the road and fuck. lab coat on fire. Sticky note constellation stuck to the ceiling wire. Gas fees are confetti. Watch me rock on the island. Get homemade in 7-4 time. Shaboom goes the efficiency pulse. The lag runs lagging in his latency so. Professor Wade's got the future on spinball. Urgent notes dancing where the bottleneck's been. Professor Wade's got the future on spinball. Plugging tomorrow with yesterday's ram stains. Velcro boots clicking through blockchain debris. Crypto notes flutter like drunk bumblebees. Optimize the board fins, they capture in the blackouts out. Professor Wade's got the future on spin.
As far as I'm aware, there's not. So it looks
spin. Professor Wade's got the future on spin. Plugging tomorrow with yesterday's ram stains. Chaos is not competitor.
This one's yours, yes. And this one can just come straight on. When you turn it on, it's already on for you. But there's a switch, as long as it's the battery indicator, then you know that that is on.
Each block mine down. Professor Wade's got the future on spinball. Urgent notes dancing where the bottleneck's been. Professor Wade's got the future on spinball. Plugging tomorrow with yesterday's ram stains. Calling me mad, but mad's just a beta test for Boodle.
Italian? Armenian. Nice.
Just dreamers, on-chain truth, no middle schemers. Forking hard and shipping code till sunrise every day. DAOs are voting, vibes are flowing, buff-eyed corns are still a-growing. While the world is breaking down, we're regen in a new way. Some VC said this tech won't last. And our bubble, watch it crash. But we don't need your central banks.
Hello, everyone. Let's try that again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to ETH Denver. My name is Jane Harrell, and I'm going to be your MC on this stage for the rest of the afternoon. So this panel, we have Reaching Beyond Whales, Scaling DeFi to Consumers with Zaki Manian, Sean Lee, Lauren Stefanian, and moderated by Denise Hallam.
Thank you. All right, can you hear me? Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining me. We are talking about reaching beyond whales. So how do we get DeFi to reach consumers? I will let the panelists introduce themselves.
My name is Zaki. I'm the co-founder of a protocol called Sommelier. SOM is sort of accessible DeFi vaults. I've been in Web3 for a decade, also known for like launching the Cosmos ecosystem, etc.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren. I'm a GP at Pantera Capital, where I've been investing for the past 7 years, and before that was a software engineer.
Hi everyone, I'm Sean. I'm co-founder of Magic. So we built a really easy way to create a crypto wallet using email, SMS, and social login. So now, we're continuing to build upon our journey to onboard more people to Web3. So we're looking to put wallets on automation with Newton. So excited to share more.
Thank you. I'm Denise. I'm the co-founder of Divi. Divi is an on-chain incentive orchestration layer that allows for sharing of revenue between backends and frontends with the mission of growing value in Web3, so growing the Web3 pie. All right. I'm very excited to be talking to you all today and hear your perspectives on this topic. Let's start with Lauren, a question for you. So we've seen a lot of changes very recently when it comes to the regulatory environment in the US. And so that opens up a lot of doors. That's how the industry is responding to those changes. What are the things, the opportunities you see, and what are maybe the strategies that were off limits before that now are back in the game?
That's a good question. I would say, with this new regulatory regime, everything as we know it is probably going to change. I guess we would expect the SEC to be coming out with, or at least focusing on building some sort of regulatory framework over the next few months. But we've already seen a much friendlier SEC with a lot of enforcement actions being dropped against major players in the space. So what this means is that I think a lot of things are going to open up in terms of what founders can build. And one of those themes, I think, personally, is going to be at both the infrastructure and the application layer. We're probably going to see more of a blend of decentralization and centralization. And then I also wouldn't be surprised if we revisited the discussion of allocating some of the revenue to token holders, which was kind of a big topic, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago.
Thanks. Maybe another perspective for Zaki. How are protocols thinking about this, the new opportunities, and then with respect to consumers specifically?
Yeah, so I think that there was some, sitting in the back of mind of, basically every DeFi protocol developer over the last 5 years was just the knowledge and the certainty that, if you did a sort of end consumer, ordinary consumer go to market, you were almost certainly going to invite a very expensive regulatory scrutiny. And so there was this question of, I think that, there's a perception, I think, broadly in the industry that protocols have excessively focused on whales. Really, whales were who you could focus on without sort of inviting in the wrath of the regulator. I think now that there's a big opportunity to sort of go for end user distribution, build mobile apps. There's also there are, on one hand, there was this fear from a regulatory side. On the other hand, there are big gaps that are starting to close in the infrastructural pieces of how do you onboard a user? How do you make any sort of on-chain finance accessible to people? So.
Yeah, thank you. Looking at the problem from the other side, as a community in Web3, we all recognize that UX is a big barrier to entry. So Sean, for you work a lot on this. What are some things you can share, or how things are changing?
Yeah, we've been actually working on UX since 2018. So back then, it was just Ethereum, where people are building dApps. We kind of connected a wallet with an email, social login, make it really easy to create an account. So I think a lot has happened since. There's now so many more blockchains, different protocols, different type of applications. I think we solved wallet creation, but still onboarding has a lot more to go, right? So, for example, interacting with DeFi still requires a lot of upfront learning. Slippage, yield optimization is like still a lot for normies to understand. And that's exacerbated by all this fragmentation across the ecosystem that's happening. So I think a lot of the potential to optimize UX next is by automation. So that's one thing that we've been kind of looking into. So because Web3 is already quite programmable, so you can kind of bring everything together and simplify for the end user, either through bots or agents, make it verifiable and trustless. So I think that's going to do a lot great to continue to improve the UX.
Thank you. From a protocol perspective, again, Zaki, I know Sommelier has been experimenting with like distribution. How does the UX problem fit into that, the experiments?
Yeah, so we've had our own front end, and we are experimenting now with working with people like Divi, expanding the technology into different front ends, different user experiences. I think like one of the challenges is that the front end has to bring with it a lot of the onboarding infrastructure today. Everything from like fiat on-ramping to off-ramping, key management, a lot of that's stuff, and like which asset a user has, where those assets are, routing those assets to the app, all of that stuff is very much today on the front-end builder, and that's a substantial challenge. And I think that there's like a exciting frontier about having more and more sort of reusable components that the industry can broadly share to solve these problems.
Great. That's a great segue for my question for you, Lauren. Do you think protocols should be thinking about this as long-tail user base consumers as they develop primitives, or should the industry kind of think of a different model to bring consumers into Web3?
Yeah, I think there's been a healthy debate around this. Yeah, I mean, to Zaki's point, like, I totally agree. I think a lot of dApps, obviously for business reasons or good business reasons, have been focused on both building the primitives and finding distribution. I think if you're kind of focused only on the protocol side and like not looking to touch the end user, you're relying on other people to gather that distribution for you, you're probably going to run into problems financially. And so like, if you do that, at best, you'll end up middleware. At worst, you'll end up with no users and no revenue. So I think it's kind of obvious why protocols or dApps would be focused on getting distribution as well. But definitely not surprised that people are kind of doing both at the same time, opening it up to others to build front ends as well.
And Sean, for you, how do your teams, like your UX teams, work with infrastructure teams, like within Magic Labs or even outside collaboration?
I think it's really important to root this in like practical use cases. And also a shared vision is important, whether that's like within the organization and externally. Because you don't want to get into a situation where the vision is not aligned, where like front end is doing one thing, back end is doing one thing, right? So you want to kind of bring it all together, even if it's like ecosystem. So like for example, we work with partners like Rhinestone, who builds like modular smart wallets that kind of share with a lot of the vision around wallets. So they've been a great partner for us.
I see. Got it. The next topic for us to chat about and share is around incentives. So what's the incentive model that can really work to bring consumers on chain from the different perspectives. So we have grant funding, we have retro funding. What do you think is missing, Zaki? What's the missing ingredient?
I think that the biggest incentive is really just giving all the parts of the supply chain a piece of the revenue. Like generate fees, charge fees, divide those fees up to the various parties that like bring you to the end consumer and make the application possible. Sommelier has always sort of charged fees. We tried the share your fees with the token holders approach. That didn't get like a very positive reaction from our community. So we kind of have focused more on reinvesting fees into the growth of the business, which I think is just a very reasonable place for a startup to be.
It feels, from our perspective, that builders don't really have the incentive model or the business models on chain to build and drive growth on chain today. Do you have a perspective on that? How can we expect and support builders going beyond shipping to really drive traction, generate fees for like protocols like Sommelier and grow value on chain?
Yeah, I think distribution is something that is really important to builders. I think a lot of that comes from, there's a social element and there's like an incentive element, right? So like things like Farcaster, Warpcast, integrating that social element into your wallets, like copy trading your friends, just I think there's a lot of like network effect and distribution potential there. But you can also see that if there's like incentives, for example, even just like basic like points, that actually brings a lot of engagement from the community. That helps complete one side. Obviously the product and the network needs to be great to retain them afterwards.
And from the investor side, are investors looking at new incentives models for builders? Hello, hello?
I don't think any of them.
Hello, oh. Turning it off and turning back on works. And
Hello?
the echo is gone. Isn't that amazing?
Hello?
Oh, all right. I'll pass this one across. So my question was for you, Lauren. How are investors thinking when investing in protocols, and how the protocols are thinking of attracting builders and supporting them with these incentives in a more prolonged way? Like, are investors taking things like that into account?
Yeah, on the DApp level, I think there's kind of an unanswered question around like who specifically the end users are and like how you build for them. Both your near-term or short-term users and your long-term users. And actually I wanted to touch on Zaki's point earlier around building for whales, just given that I guess it's a well-known, it's not a secret that a lot of DEXs, the biggest or largest amount of users are whales. And so we've seen a lot of DEXs kind of cater to them and build around them and for them. Sometimes at the hindrance maybe of your long tail, mass adoption type customers. And so, yeah, the question I guess is that for regulatory reasons, or is it just because they're more attractive financially?
I think one of the other real challenges is how much of the opportunity is somewhat boring, but effective and financially financially sane, sort of self-custodial DeFi, and how much that is just going to not be lost in the noise of just generally what is happening in the world, AI, DeFi, AI, meme coins, etc., and how much of the opportunity to get distribution is really catered around building things which have inherent virality in them. I think that's also a real challenge. We built a lot of very reliable financial primitives, but like lending your Bitcoin is not the most exciting viral thing in the world, or generating 10% yield on your ETH is not the most exciting viral thing in the world right now. And so like what distribution strategies can take advantage of the new regulatory environment and actually get like widespread adoption, I think are a real challenge.
Cool. All right. We talked about distribution, so the next one is around adapting to market segments. So you asked about like changing the mindset and adapting from whales to consumers. What about different consumer segments and market segments? So the Divi thesis is that different front ends know their markets and their segments or sub-segments really well. They can build products that are really tailored to those segments, and they know their audience so that they can take them to market and drive value and bring those people on chain. So what does that mean for protocols? Do you agree with that? Do you encourage diversity of front ends, or do you think
and chains and a lot of fragmentation? So I think there's going to be a pendulum swing back into wallets that's using all these protocols, these components and technology that's already developed, and service that to their end users and community in a way that best fits their use cases. So yeah, I think that's how it's gonna maybe shift, because that's like the best user experience. Then the user kind of going in and figure out the difference between all of these things that's just increasing by the week, right? So I think just kind of abstracting away the application part for the end user and just focus on the functionality and their intention, I think is what's next.
Cool. What's your perspective, Zaki, on this? Should it be one UX per protocol, or should it be different?
I'm like fairly confident that the UX has to be packaged on like a consumer segment basis, whether it's like language, location. I think that like let's say take a very simple thing like generating yield on like dollars, like dollar denominated yield generation. How that can be packaged for different audiences, I think is there are probably hundreds of different ways of packaging it. And it requires a lot of probably local context to bring that product to the relevant markets. So if you take like Latin America or Africa, what are the on-ramps, off-ramps that need to be supported? What is the like flow in between local currencies and US dollars that people will expect? How do people want to be like shown and visualize their yield? What are their liquidity expectations? How fast do they want to be able to on-ramp and off-ramp? What are their security, key recovery, all of these things needs? All of these things seem like hyper-locally specific. And so one interesting question is if can we have protocols as primitives and then actually scale as an industry where we have a variety of different users of those primitives, delivering them in an appropriate way.
Cool. That checks for me. Thank you. All right, I have one more question for the panelists, hopefully sparking some thoughts. But I also, after that, want to open up to the audience if you have questions, so start thinking about them. So the last question is, what's the most underestimated opportunity in DeFi right now? Trying again. What is the most underestimated opportunity in DeFi right now? If you had to make one bet in an underexplored market, what would that market segment or strategy be? So whoever wants to start, and I think we can all chime in.
I mean, it's hard to say what's underestimated at this point, because I think like there's a lot of VCs who are excited. Maybe the hype has died down a little bit, but like DeFi has been explored over and over, and I think we're all kind of expecting things to open up under this regulatory regime. So I would say personally it's a toss-up between like real-world assets and decentralized lending. Like those are the two things I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I think RWAs for sure. But also, I think there's a lot of potential in like privacy, like MEV protection, ensuring like fair launches. I think just things that can help the space become more like mainstream user friendly and more mature. I think these are actually quite important.
I do think fairness is a really important theme that maybe can be a part of sort of wider distribution. The more that we can the apps that have gotten wide adoption in this like last cycle, the pump.funds, the meme coin apps, were not fair. They sort of were marketed around fairness a little bit, but like there was a lot of spots where unfairness. I've like myself, my co-founder Christy has like long thought that fairness, like building fairness into the protocol, was like probably one of the like sort of asymmetric advantages that Web3 might be able to like leverage to get wider understanding about like why you should use a Web3 app rather than sort of traditional finance.
Awesome, thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes.
Hi, I'm just curious, you as a user, you guys as a crypto user, what are your biggest personal pain point at the moment? What are you doing in your everyday and you're like, this is something that drives me nuts? I'm just curious to see, not as a VC perspective, as a crypto user perspective.
Who wants to share their personal?
I think I can take this off. I've been working on UX because, I can't really get into all of it. The space moves so fast. And I think if there's like a way to simplify and automate user experience for me, that would like solve a lot of my pain points. But I don't really trust like Telegram bots handing them private keys with asset in it. But yeah, it would be great if it's that like kind of concierge experience for me. Just telling it what I need, and they'll kind of figure out what's the most optimal way to do it, than kind of trying to go deep myself. So.
Hello? Oh, I can share. So for me, it's doing the research. So do your own research, definitely very important, and I take it seriously. It's very time consuming. So whenever something new comes up and I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting, I want to try it out, that's like a rabbit hole, right? Like each of those new things that I want to try out in DeFi or in Web3 more generally, it's just very, very time consuming. And I don't have all of that much time because I'm working very hard on Divi. Anyone else? All right.
I echo Sean's point. Like UX is probably the hardest thing. That and gas fees, I guess, biggest pain points.
I think fragmentation is still the hardest problem. I don't think that we can like realistically expect users to understand like the difference between Ethereum L1, Base, Arbitrum, Solana, Sui. Like they don't like. Pretty much everything that we do that starts with where like a user encounters these concepts is in GMI, and I've been involved in like the sort of chain abstraction community, chain abstraction narrative. As this infrastructure matures, hopefully we are very close to a world in which we can deliver apps. But I have not personally been able to do it yet. I have not, like Sommelier has a network switcher button. We don't do any routing for you. All of the experiments that we've tried with some sort of automated routing have kind of not actually succeeded. The infrastructure couldn't get the job done. So I really want this thing. I really want this like unfragmented experience and like like an ever larger surface area of user experience that can be unfragmented. But we're still that has to be the task of this year to like kind of get there.
We have time for one more question. No? All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining me here. This was so fun.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
likewise.
Thank you.